Hello, everybody. This is Adrienne Berg, and I'm going to tell you that we're going to tackle something that nobody ever tackles. It's one of the reasons that the Ageless Traveler was born, and that is to help folks who are caregivers of an older adult still be able to travel. I know so many people, including very close relatives, who haven't traveled for years because they are concerned about an older relative, and I will tell you that many of those folks are already retired and they thought that travel would be a major part of their retirement lifestyle. And it isn't. But I'll tell you my own personal story where I did travel and I did it the wrong way. And the consequences were really, really devastating. So to help us with this issue of overcoming the barriers to lifelong travel, if we're caregivers, is a great specialist in the area. She is the CEO of Senior Living Strategies. She'll tell us exactly what that means. And she's also the author of Successfully Navigating Your Parents' Senior Years, critical information to maximize their independence and make sure they get the care that they absolutely need. Her name is Star. You're going to think she's a star, Bradbury. So, hi, Star. How are you?
Hi, Adrienne. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be on your show. And I love the work that you're doing, helping both caregivers and travelers. It's a great concept.
And it's a difficult one. So let's start with the easy part. The actual easy part is all about caregiving. So what is Senior Living Strategies? What do you do for folks in the ordinary course of your business?
Well, thank you for asking. Started my business actually about 6 years ago when I retired from a position that was very full-time and very demanding that I loved, but I wasn't ready to throw away my 24 years of experience in the senior living industry without just feeling compelled to consult with people and help them through very difficult situations and decision-making, whether it was for themselves or for their loved one that they might be seeing needs more care or needs more help. And so I like to say that I help people to age successfully by developing a plan, hopefully, Adrienne, long before a crisis, years and years before. Because what I like to say is not if your parents are going to need help, Adrienne, it is when.
Right.
And nobody can predict that. Nobody can answer that question. And if you look at the statistics, 1 in 5 older people will need time and skilled in assisted living and home care or serious long-term care. The numbers are pretty truth-telling.
I have to say that when they do go into these residences, it's not the end. Most of the people that tell me they're not traveling already have folks who are in assisted living. You would think that they would have the freedom to travel, but they actually don't. And they don't go. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because constantly something is coming up, a complaint, or the older adult actually fires their caretaker. And all of a sudden they get a phone call and they really are worried. So let's break this up. First, let's talk about the listeners who are caregivers and the folks that they're caregiving to are in some sort of a residence. Now that seems to be the easiest, and yet it's not so easy. So how would you manage, if you're on a trip, your parents' caregiving long distance, probably similarly to people who simply don't live near their parents, they're just in another state. How would you suggest that you take care of your parents' long distance if they're in a residence already? They're not living in your home or their own home. What should you do?
I think that's a great question. Some of my advice, Adrienne, would be the same. Whether you had a parent that was still living at home, but you felt nervous about traveling and leaving because you were their go-to person, or if your loved one was in, let's say, assisted living or skilled nursing. I really feel that you have to find somebody to replace yourself on a temporary basis or be your support person. So what do I mean by that? I don't know if you've heard about an association that I am a member of called the Aging Life Care Association, or ALCA, Aging Life Care Association. I'm a huge, huge fan of this association, and there are others like it. But the point is that I advise families to find a certified geriatric care manager who has deep experience in, of course, if they're certified in geriatrics, then they understand the issues, the problems, and they're going to become your go-to person as needed for the time that you're away. You will have the peace of mind of knowing that this person is now going to be the person that the facility calls, or the person that your loved one calls, or the person that's going to solve the issue as a liaison on your mom or dad's behalf with the facility, let's say, or handling an emergency, showing up at the hospital. I always tell people, this is like the daughter maybe you don't have. So again, this is a resource I love to tell people about, because they can be your person's advocate, problem solver, liaison with the doctor, with the hospital, with the facility. Now, typically, Adrian, this person, they're not the one who goes in and assists with dressing or medication management. This is somebody at much, much higher level with a great deal of education that can develop a care plan. Should it be needed? Oversee staff. Should it be needed? Let's say, especially if you're long distance, live in another state, and you want someone to be the communicator between you, your parent, and either their medical team or the facility. Have you heard about this group at all before?
Well, you know what? The group that you just mentioned, I haven't. I've heard of some wonderful organizations and worked with them called Friends Indeed, not Friends in Need, but Friends Indeed.
I've heard of them.
And plenty of apps I want to bring out to everybody. And remember, every one of these suggestions we have on our show notes. So you don't have to take notes if you're listening. But the name of that organization and, of course, CEO, Senior Living Strategies will be on their apps that you could use for caregivers, that are specifically for caregivers, and places like Friends in Need, Friends Indeed. But there are also some wonderful organizations where you could use family members who would be willing to replace you for a short period of time. So these are some of the things that a caregiver could use, and you'll have all those references. I want to go back to something else that you said, and that is you felt that also would help for people who were still living in their own home. But what about the daily caregiver? In one case, a friend of mine addresses his mother's wounds. She lives with him, and he does that routinely, and he feels he cannot travel. But what do you use? Who would you call for a temporary in-home caregiver?
Well, I just left literally half an hour before our appointment, Healthcare Association luncheon. There were at least 50 people there. And I was so excited, Adrian, to see at least 3 companies represented at this luncheon who do mobile primary care to people's homes. That is coming back in a big way. Mm-hmm. And I also heard of a company that does in-home wound therapy and wound care. So what I think is happening, and I can't imagine this is only in Florida where I live, the demand for more personalized, better care, keeping people out of the ER, helping them through transition times between serious hospital and rehab and transitioning home. There are so many more companies out there filling in those gaps, helping people succeed in not going back to the hospital or succeed staying at home. And I think that one of the things I tell people in my consulting business is that don't wait for the emergency, and don't necessarily wait until you're leaving for 2 weeks. I think it's so important, Adrian, that families and caregivers recognize that they are building their support team so they can feel comfortable traveling and not have to suddenly find a new person and introduce that new person to their loved one, whether they're at home or in a facility. That means that, again, this is what I mean about developing a plan to age successfully. That's not, I call post-retirement years the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years, right?
And exactly. There's a wonderful book, and guess who wrote it? Bradbury. It's called Successfully Navigating Your Parents' Senior Years. And I love that title because it's not them alone navigating their senior years. It's successfully navigating your parents' senior years. And why that's so important to me, and I'm age 76, is that if that was demonstrated by you to your parents, it's quite possible that your children would
Absolutely.
just pay some attention to navigating your eventual no-go years.
Yes, Adrienne, you couldn't be more right, because I have seen so many people say, I'm a senior, I'm buying this book for myself, and I'm buying copies for my children, and then we're going to have a Zoom, because everybody lives so far apart. If you don't, lucky you. We're going to have a Zoom call and sit down and really talk about this, where you get to express as a senior what your wishes are. Yes. If you were to hit the slow go or the no go years, you don't want to wait. And I just want to say how important it is for caregivers to give themselves things to look forward to. Now, I watched with my own parents. My stepdad took care of my mom for years and years and years. He let his health fail with drastic outcomes at the end, even though my mom passed away before he did. And that is far more typical, as you know.
Yes.
The caregivers ignore their health. That's why I want to support your listeners that are saying, I can't travel. I want to hold your hand, look you in the eyes, and say, yes, you can. Will it take some extra planning? Will it take a little bit of letting go, that fear of, I can't do this? You cannot hold on to the belief mistakenly that you are the only one that can meet your loved one's needs, or your mom's needs, or your dad's needs. That is not healthy thinking.
Yes. And you know what you're doing? You're freeing people. You're freeing people when you say that. Now, we're going to take a little bit of a break. Don't you go anywhere. Have you considered traveling to a place of incomparable beauty, great adventure, and spirituality? If so, did you think of Iceland? I didn't think you did, but I did. And we're traveling in October 2024 on a quest to see the magical Northern Lights. Colette Tours, a leader in small group trips, arranged everything for us, including a 3-night expedition to see the lights. The flight is only about 4.5 hours from New York City. And you can even add on Greenland if you're like me. We'll go together. All the information is at the Ageless Traveler website, agelesstraveler.com, featured trips. And of course, there's always discounts. agelesstraveler.com, featured trips. Never stop traveling. And now we're back, and we're here with Star Bradbury. She is an aging life care specialist. She's an author, Successfully Navigating Your Parents' Senior Years, and she's the CEO of Senior Living Strategies. And all the information, including her book, will be at agelesstraveler.com in our book club. You'll see that. You'll be able to get a copy of that from Amazon. And, of course, all of the links and information we're talking about. But I'm going to now turn the table, all right? Turn the table to the older adult who's very active in the go-go years, absolute go-go years, as you call them. And they, as you said, want to leave some information before they travel. I know so many folks who are traveling all over the world. I'm one of them. And they don't have a will. Now, I do. I have advanced directives.
Give me a heart attack just hearing that.
I know. Don't worry. I got trust. No, you'd be surprised. Some of the people that don't have a will are lawyers, but that's another story.
No, I know. I see it too.
Right. So tell us about that a little bit, because you deal a lot with helping people navigate through those directives.
Well, if it's one thing that I've learned, Adrienne, in my consulting business, I never, ever, ever make assumptions about the basics, the legal and financial documents and healthcare documents that are basic. So when I sit down with a family or with an older person, I don't make assumptions. Why? Because exactly what you said. I sat down with a very highly educated, retired professor from the University of Florida, a brilliant man at 84 with a lot of assets. First question I asked, I was sure I would hear, of course you have a will. He did not have a will. He did not have a living will. He did not have a healthcare surrogate. And of course, he did not have a power of attorney. So I just can't stress enough that in terms of developing a plan that's going to allow you as a caregiver to live through your parents' aging, and for the senior out there listening that is procrastinating on this, believe me, Adrian, there's no relationship between how soon you do a will and how soon you might die.
That is true. It is. In fact, some people say it's the other way around.
That's right. Long distance care and being able to go on vacation with any peace of mind.
Right.
So, it's the will, it's the living will, it's the healthcare surrogate, it's the power of attorney. And I really have a list of things that you can do long before you want to take that wonderful trip. And listen, let's say you're traveling with your loved one that has mild cognitive impairment. What kinds of things would you want to make sure you've accomplished? All of those things, none of those things change. In other words, the medical, legal, and financial documents in place, and then some of the basic things like lists of all the doctors, list of pharmacies, a complete list of medications that person is on, making sure they're not going to run out of their medications while they're traveling. You don't want to be trying to fill prescriptions when you're in Morocco. And so, you just have to think of common sense things that are going to help you enjoy a trip.
So my mother died, and she died in her own home all alone while I was on vacation, which is certainly one of the motivators for me of bringing this information to all of you. And you would think, how does this happen? Well, I will tell you, I have a very good friend, very famous actually. Her name is Claudia Fine, and she started one of the best assisted living communities anywhere. Eventually sold it all to Humana. So she's doing pretty good. And I love Claudia. And she said something to me. She said, an older person, my mom was 92 at that time, is like a potato chip. It looks good, but it breaks very easily.
And
this is what was happening. She lived by herself. She was extremely feisty. She was really, really her own woman. She wouldn't go into an assisted living no matter what I did. She wouldn't live with me. She had lived with me a little bit and wanted to go home. And she did go home. And she kind of pretended she was caring for herself. But it sounded good. Yeah, not uncommon. Sounded good on the phone. We did have one of those alert, the alert services, one of the best, most expensive. And she called and said she wasn't feeling well. We were all in another state, about 8 hours away by car, 2 or 3 hours by plane. I immediately called a home health aide to come. They were too late. They couldn't find one fast enough. And the second time I called, about 40 minutes later, there was no answer. I had the door broken down, and my mom was gone. My mom was gone, and she wasn't even gone. They took her to a hospital. They didn't have the information you talked about, so she went to a trauma hospital far away, and she passed away in the ambulance. And it even took a long time for us to find out where she was. So this this is the worst of the worst, right? Couldn't be worse. And all of it could have been avoided, every bit of it, by paying attention. That was it. Only paying attention to the signs that someone you love might not be somebody you could leave by themselves while you go on vacation. So what are some of those signs?
Well, let me just say how sorry I am for your story. I actually have a similar story where they broke the door down to my stepmother's apartment and found her unconscious, and she passed away 2 days later. And I was much, much younger, did not have the knowledge that I have. And that was one of my compelling reasons to write this book, is to spare people this kind of trauma and having to live with that. I know what that's like, Adrian. Yep. You think, why didn't I do it differently? Why didn't I here's a hint, listeners, all the names and phone numbers of her neighbors in her New York City apartment building or homes across the street. People you can call. Look, I can't reach my mom. She's not picking up. Can you just go over and knock on the door and see if they're okay? But see, even before then, let's go back to developing a plan. I want to encourage your caregivers to already have a relationship with a home care company that is coming in. Maybe they're only coming in to see your mom twice a week, but they know her, they have an account, and now you call and say, I'm going on vacation and I'd like to increase hours and have somebody go 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day. I'd like somebody there 24 hours a day while I'm gone. I want the aging life care specialist to do a well check every day while I'm gone and report back to me. And so now you have a support system already in place, Adrienne, and now you are amping it up while you are on vacation. The other thing I want to say is
so important.
Yeah, because if you've done the homework, the medical information, which, by the way, you want to have with you, meaning, let's say you're traveling, you get a call, and hopefully it's somebody who says, I checked on mom today, she's great, or mom fell, we called 911, I brought her to the hospital, and here's a report, and because you left me with her copies of her doctors, her medications, all her living will, you don't have to fax them to me, even though you have them too. I say fax, isn't that funny? Scan them to me,
Right.
Yeah. So you go prepared and you leave the people in charge prepared.
Now, let me explain to everybody that we take this very seriously. I believe that lifelong travel is very important for us who can do so. And I also believe that more importantly is taking the best care of the people that you love. But I also believe you can do both. And I'm making a point here.
I do too.
This show is to knock down your barriers to travel, your personal barriers to travel. One of them is this. For many, many people, certainly in my age group, let's say 10 years older and 10 years younger than me. But many people say, look, I have to be here for my mom or dad, and I'll travel later. I would like you to try to travel now. Even though you may have to prepare a pre-plan with all these things, it isn't so hard. Why would I like you to do that? Because being involved in geroscience and what's going on with chronic illnesses, people are living 8 to 20 years. And now it's 8 to 25 years.
Yes.
Do you really want to wait 8 to 25 years without traveling? Because a time could come that you are now in their position and that travel never comes. It's not necessary, but it is necessary to take these precautions. And we're going to be right back. I'm going to tell you some happy things about places we're going together to the beautiful, beautiful Azores in Portugal. Don't you guys go anywhere. Come with us to Portugal, May 2024. My mouth is watering as I read the Colette brochure for our May 11th to 24th trip to Portugal and the Azores. I can't wait to revisit Lisbon with you and show you its hidden museums, sip red wine, munch olives, and listen to the fado music. That's a UNESCO heritage experience, but we're also going to bathe in the beauty of the Azores, peer down volcanic craters, stroll in the Terra Nostra Botanic Park. Now, come travel with us. And if you've got a group of 10 or more, or you're a nonprofit organization, discover the benefits of our group programs at Ageless Traveler, featured trips, and group trips. Don't forget, this is the kind of travel that will allow you to never stop traveling. And now we're back, and we're turning the conversation now to our last segment here with Bradbury. She is an aging life care specialist. You'll find all of her information here in our show notes. CEO of Senior Living Strategies, and of course, author of Successfully Navigating Your Parents' Senior Years. And you can make a life plan for your loved ones. You can make a life plan for yourself, but you can also make a vacation plan.
Yay!
Just as you're sure for all of these same pre-planning possibilities. Now, I want to ask you a very specific question in a moment, but I do know you want to bring up again one of your favorite organizations and explain some of the features of it to folks?
I do. And that is the Aging Life Care Association. And as I said earlier, you will find somebody to be your right-hand person when you are traveling that will give you the peace of mind to enjoy your vacation. If you go to the Aging Life Care Association, you can put in your zip code for anywhere in the United States, and you will find out all of the people that are members of this organization within. You can do a 20-mile area, 50-mile area, 100-mile area, and you will see whether they have medical backgrounds, whether they're RNs, or whether they have masters in social work, and whether their expertise is more in the communications or the medical. Are you looking for a medical assessment, or are you having severe communication problems with your loved one or within the family? So you can tailor who you are interested in by looking at their resumes and their expertise in education.
And our motto is lifelong travel made easy. Simply by doing something like that or having a temporary care person, it makes it easy for you to go away. It makes it possible for you to go away with a feeling of peace of mind and safety for your loved one. But here I want to end with a question. I gave you the potato chip line that all older adults look good, but they break easily.
You don't want to wait till you're seeing those signs.
You don't want to wait. But there were other signs. Now that I go back over and over and over in my mind, I could have seen the signs of my mother, but I didn't want to see them. I wanted to see her to be the strong woman I always knew her to be. So and even today, I have friends who are very, very proud. Oh, my mom, she's bright as a button. She hasn't lost a bit. She hasn't lost a marble. She's great. She's living by herself. And I wonder, wait.
Well,
so,
is right.
So what should they be looking at? Because, it's Thanksgiving, and Christmas and all this. And you can see.
Yes. Perfect timing. You must be reading my mind, Adrienne, because here's what I want to say. A phone call once a week, once a month, or even every day is not enough for you to be able to tell what is really going on. I tell families, first of all, just like you said, older people are very, very good at camouflaging their any sort of cognitive impairment. And unless you're there for 3 days consecutively, at least, and looking for things like, are there Post-it notes all over the place that they're finding they depend on to remind them of things? Do you see bills piling up? Checkbooks that, if they're still using checkbooks that haven't been balanced? Things, old food in the refrigerator with mold that nobody's noticing? Where your mother used to be absolutely pristine in her appearance. Now you see that she's wearing clothes that should be washed or dry cleaned. Did she used to be super social, and now you see that she is suddenly not going out or hesitant to drive? There are all kinds of red flags and signs that should show that it's time to bring in some help into the home. And I have a way to approach this with resistant seniors.
Yep. Let me tell you something. I have a webinar called Why Won't Mama Listen to Me? And it's the saddest. I even give techniques that, because I work with the United Nations, that diplomats use. When I talk to the diplomats, they'll say I'm very diplomatic if it's another country, but if it's my mother, she doesn't listen to me. So
the last thing you want to do is get angry. You cannot get angry. Right. But I love that. Why won't Mama listen to me? Well, I have a technique, and other than telling people, please go buy my book and look at my principle number 1. And principle number 1, I only have 2, and they're powerful if you apply them. And I show you throughout the book with an imaginary family how these really can be useful as a framework for you to make some difficult decisions as you truly do navigate the arc, just like the arc of your parents' lives. And just like Adrienne said, do you know the fastest growing group demographically in the United States is 90 to 100?
Yep. So
obviously what your needs are as a caregiver or as a senior are radically different. Are you in the go-go years, slow go, or no-go? But this principle still applies to help you make decisions. Principle number 1, How can I help maximize and prolong my parents' independence for the longest possible time? Let me model a conversation for you with a difficult mother. So mom is saying, I'm fine. I don't need any help. Don't you dare hire anyone for me.
I've heard that one.
Right. Okay, I'll fire them. Of course, we've all seen that too. And here's how I would say that. So, Mom, I want to make sure you're going to mirror back what you heard. I think what you're saying to me is you're really trying to communicate to me that you want to be as independent as possible. That's right. They're not going to disagree. And that means, Mom, that you want to stay in your home and age in place. Is that true? It's like an attorney. You're asking a question, You kind of know the answer. They're going to say yes, probably. They're not going to say yes. I can't wait to move to assisted living. They're not going to say that.
Right.
They're going to say, I want to stay in my home. And that's when you say, but Mom, I want that for you too. But the longer that you stay here with no help at all increases the chance of something happening. And now we're reacting to a crisis, a fall, or trying to do too much. When if you just let somebody come in a few times a week and help with the basic things, a home care companion, even if it's like taking that person shopping or making a few meals, that would actually help you stay independent longer, not less.
The idea here is that that conversation may have to take place a couple of times, but it's worth having it. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to continue this conversation, which is so worth having, on our YouTube channel so that you'll actually meet Star in person. But for this podcast, we've come to the end of our discussion. Thank you for listening, and see the show notes on agelesstraveler.com for resources that we mentioned on the show. And don't forget, click the join button for our Facebook salon and receive even more information that will make lifelong travel easy. And please visit and subscribe to our Ageless Traveler YouTube channel. Of course, you're going to meet Star, but all of our other guests. And in our next series episode, we delve into the travel of those with mild cognitive or physical issues with Dr. Sargent. Now, she's one of our advisory board stellar stars. And this is Adrienne Berg, the Ageless Traveler, here to ensure that you never stop traveling.